Revelio.
That's that. Gotta go over here next. So we'll get over here. Get that food powder.
Not sure how I'd fare in a little place like this.
Alright, let's go. So we got Crucio.
Back to the grind.
This
Wait,
is
are you
not only going to be helpful in combat. You can see the little video tutorial there. It
Because
shows you
if
what
so,
it does.
Unless you want to play Hogwarts, that's fine. I was curious if you wanted to do some Valorant. Alright, no worries, bro. Enjoy your dicks.
Do I not know how to spell addicting?
Idiot. What the hell? Get up here.
Addicted.
I think this is the house.
Am I actually that dumb? Addicted.
Is it?
Oh, it's with 2 D's.
Which house is it? That one.
But when you get the passageways that your character needs to crouch down and go through, they can be a little bit tedious. It takes a while to go through them.
Your family loves the internet, but your low bandwidth can't keep up. You should meet Ziply Fiber. All the bandwidth.
If you use Swift, so just hold down your dodge button just before you enter the animation, you're gonna. But it's going to catch and throw disarmed.
Okay, Swift Core. Ancient Magic Throw Expertise Core.
Bro, I like how I'm like
Most important
casually
core
breaking into
talents,
people's
spell
houses,
talents,
like, no problem. Shit is more addicting than League. Bro, it's fun. I will say Hogwarts is very
Enemy
fun.
weapons. So Expelliarmus, disarm the enemy. Ancient Magic Throw, launch their own weapon at them. Deal a lot of damage to them with their own weapons.
That
Then we have an upgrade for Protego. Successful.
Always legacy talents and talents end game.
Here.
Game. Hogwarts Legacy best talents you need to get Hogwarts Legacy talents 3 days ago. Hogwarts Legacy talents which are the best for your gameplay. Hogwarts Legacy Voldemort build. Hogwarts Legacy build new meta? What the hell? What is this Lord Voldemort shit? Got a wizard build in Hogwarts Legacy build guide. Okay. Let me just go back to this one real
Welcome
quick.
back to Hogwarts Legacy. Be helpful in combat. You can see the little video tube. If you swift through and it makes that operation as throw disarmed and
Okay, let me duplicate.
welcome back to Hogwarts Legacy. In this video we are covering the best your character needs.
Okay, this. Okay.
There are 8 done.
Okay, that.
Off on another adventure, are we?
This house?
6 hours ago.
Oh, of course, it's a cat. Fuck.
I don't need house stuff. I don't really see. Okay. Do
So
this.
what's going on, guys? Here.
Okay.
Revelio.
Let's check
of
this out.
talents to unlock in
Use your
Hogwarts
enemy's
Legacy, and
weapons
they can
against them.
significantly buff some of your spells, potions, or even your stealth capabilities. And it's important you make the right decisions, as you cannot respec your talents and there are not enough talent points in the game to unlock all of them. So in this video, we'll highlight some of the best talents that you want to get for your witch or wizard. If you are enjoying Hogwarts Legacy and like the content here on the channel, then leave a like to help us out, subscribe to not miss any of our spoiler-free tips and tricks videos, and let's go. So when you start the game, you don't immediately have access to your talent system, as it's unlocked through a main story quest called Jackdaw's Rest. Completing this quest will unlock the talent tree and also retroactively gives you any talent points you should have been awarded before. So as you can see, when I unlocked the system at level 11, I had 7 talent points available, whereas Joyce unlocked it at level 18 and got 14 talent points. Every time you level up, you gain a new talent point, and 40 seems to be the max level, which means you can only earn up. You gain a new talent point, and 40 seems to be the max
40's
level,
the max,
which means you can only earn 36 points in total, while there are 48 available talents. And while you don't have to do this quest early on, as you're not missing out on any talent points, I definitely recommend making this a priority, as your talents can really improve the power of your spellcasting. And regardless of your playstyle, I think everyone should grab a few key talents from the core tree. As you can see, all talent trees are divided into 3 tiers, with the first unlocking at level 5, the second at 16, and the third at 22. Lucky for us, some of the core tree's most useful talents are already found in the first tier, so you can unlock them straight away. One that I enjoy using a lot is the Ancient Magic Throw Expertise talent. It allows you to throw disarmed enemies. A lot is the Ancient Magic Throw Expertise talent. It allows you to throw. One that most useful talents are already found in the first tier, so you can unlock them straight away. One that I enjoy using a lot is the Ancient Magic.
I already have that, I think.
Collect it though. Why can't I collect it?
Yeah, I already have that.
Throw Expertise talent. It allows you to throw disarmed enemy weapons, so very strong against the many goblins and enchanted armors you have to fight during the main story. The way to disarm someone is of course with the Expelliarmus spell, which is unlocked by completing your second assignment for Professor Hackett that becomes available after the Tomes and Tribulations main story mission. Then it's as simple as casting that spell on an enemy with a weapon and then immediately follow up with R1 or RB to perform an ancient magic throw on their weapon to deal some nice damage. This of course makes the Expelliarmus spell way more useful, and if you want to buff up more of your spells, then there's a category of talents for that too. Put simply, you find modifiers here for most of your slottable spells to enhance their effects. If you're looking for a way to deal some nice fire damage, the upgrade to Confringo is really good. It spawns homing.
I think I have Confringo.
Project deals some nice.
Oh wait, this is this one. Oh yeah.
Fire damage, the upgrade to Confringo is really good. It spawns homing projectiles when you hit an enemy with Confringo that will also ignite their targets if they hit, which makes it a really great spell against spiders and other creatures that are vulnerable to fire, like in theory. If you've yet to learn that spell, it becomes available during the main story quest in the Shadow of the Undercroft. And more talents that you can get earlier are actually really nice, like Incendio Mastery, Swift, Basic Cast Mastery, and Spell Diamonds. Jordan already went over that in our Amazing Things You Want to Get Early video, so totally check that one out for a more detailed explanation and other tips. For now, I want to focus on amazing talents we haven't discussed yet, and also some that you can only get a little bit later in the game. Another spell upgrade that really helped me out a lot is the Mastery talent for Accio. It says multiple enemies at once instead of just a single target. Enemies have to be relatively close to each other for this to work, but still it offers a lot of extra control, and it pairs nicely with another spell upgrade that I will get to in a bit. If you, by the way, enjoy the Levioso spell more, there is a similar upgrade in them. Finally, the Edgerus potion can be a real lifesaver with an up also for these potions. And while you can't choose where the deflected attacks go, you can't be damaged by anything, even AoE spells like this Thunderstorm or attacks with a red marker. It even allows you to deflect some spells you normally would not be able to, like here you see a Petrificus Totalis from an enemy bounce off back to the caster. And there are more great talents in this room of requirement tree, but they all require you to have the required potions or plants, so it can be quite expensive. We also want to try them out a bit more, so expect a future video where we go in depth on these talents. For now, we want to stick to the ones anyone can use regardless of their playstyle. After leveling up some more, you should be able to access the second and eventually the third tier of skills. While I think the second tier of the core skills aren't that exciting, with the exception of another spell diamond and an enjoy blocking and parrying.
Wait, what is that? Perfect Protego release a damage blast that breaks enemy shield. If I deals direct damage on impact. This is actually pretty good. Wait, hold up. Release a blast that breaks enemy shield. Is that every time? Because that's actually pretty useful.
The third tier has some great talents, specifically if you enjoy blocking and parrying. Protego Mastery releases a damaging shockwave that also breaks enemy shields on a perfect parry. The way you perform these is by looking at the two yellow halos that appear above your head as an enemy is about to attack, and then waiting until they overlap, so basically become one circle before you press triangle or Y. Get the timing right and you blast enemies back with a powerful shockwave. You can of course follow up any successful use of Protego with Stupefy by holding down the button, and the Stupefy expertise talent makes it so that the spell also deals damage. In its basic form, it only stuns an enemy and it increases the damage of your follow-up attacks, but with this talent you can actually output some decent damage every time you counter an enemy attack. Stack that with the damage from the shockwave from your perfect Protego and the increased damage to a target hit by Stupefy, and you'll see a big increase in your
actually
damage.
pretty damn
So even
good.
if your first instinct is to dodge rather than parry, you might want to try switching things up after unlocking these upgrades. The second and third tier of spell talents also have some really worthwhile upgrades.
Also, you can have more than two
talent for Descendo. You learn this spell by completing an assignment for Professor Onai that becomes available after it turns autumn in the story. In its basic form, it quickly slams an enemy to the ground, dealing minor damage, but this can be significantly increased if an enemy is slammed down while levitating. So by either casting Accio or Levioso on a target, or multiple if you have the upgrades we mentioned, you can follow up with Descendo to deal massive damage. With the talent unlocked, slamming an enemy down will also create a shockwave, damaging all nearby enemies in the process. And remember that airborne targets take increased damage, so grabbing multiple enemies with Accio or Levioso and then following up with Descendo allows you to deal maximum damage to more than one target. And while it isn't necessarily my preferred style of play, there is a pretty great talent to unlock in the stealth tree too, right Jordan?
Yes, Dennis, I really like sneaking around, so immediately unlocked that human demiguise talent, as I also noted in my previous video. Like, there are some stealth missions in the game as well, or when unlocking the eye chest, it's nice to be able to sprint. So I think this one is totally worth getting, but it's hard to recommend the other stealth talents. Like the level 22 talent that lets you nuke multiple enemies that are close to each other with certificate. Now, one that I do think you should totally get is Transformation Mastery. You unlock the transformation spell during your first class from Professor Weasley. It's the second main story mission after it turns winter in the game. And normally you turn enemies into a regular barrel with this spell, but with this talent, that barrel becomes an explosive one, which of course deals way more damage and can also hit multiple targets. It's really satisfying to turn an enemy into a powerful item that you can then use against their friends. You can also use it to turn a dark wizard who just transformed into an animagus back to human form, which is a cool touch. But I don't think you need the talent for this in order to do it. Now, this spell doesn't work on bigger enemies, so also ones you cannot lift up or use Accio on, although many other strong targets can become an explosive barrel, which will then also instantly kill them. It's also fun to do this when there's only one enemy left. Just like turn him into a barrel, destroy that barrel with basic shots, and you end the fight. And you find way more powerful talents in the Dark Arts tree, but only if you want to play around with the unforgivable curses. And Dennis, as the Dark Wizard of the Joraptor team, you already went in depth on this overpowered playstyle, right?
Yes, that's right, and as expected, it's really powerful, allowing you to kill entire groups of enemies with one spell. You can watch our in-depth video on the Dark Arts that also covers how to get the unforgivable curses by...
Okay. Okay, let's
And
see
welcome
this.
back to a brand new video.
This.
For today I will show you the new best Lord Voldemort build in Hogwarts Legacy. So in this guide I will show you what
Talents,
spells
gear,
and gear you want to get. Then I will explain
traits.
what are the
Oh,
best talents,
okay.
gear upgrades and traits to use for early and endgame content. And then lastly I will show you the best gameplay and even which stats you need to prioritize when leveling. So you would be able to get the best results and highest damage possible and much more. So if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get straight into it. So then moving over to the build, and this whole setup is made by using all three forbidden curses called Crucio, Imperio and of course Avada Kedavra. This build's main objective is to buff up your curse effects, so then we can constantly curse enemies and deal as much damage as possible. So that's why we will be using the talents like the First Blood, to make one of our curse spells, hit and curse all enemies in AoE range, and then we will be using other talents and traits, like the Enduring Curse and Curse Sapper, so we could extend the duration of our spells, and then after each elimination we will get health per kill and much more. I like to call this setup as the Dark Wizard build, because our main damage will come from the forbidden spells and other bonuses that will buff our ability to use dark magic. So if you're looking for the highest damage build in the game, then this is the one for you. So then with that said, let's move over to the talents. And as you get one talent per each level, so expect to max most of your talent tree to more than 50%. But for the first 10 to 15 levels, each point matters. So then first of all,
before Shopify, I felt like I didn't even know who my customers were, and that's why I switched to Shopify.
we want to spend 3 points in the core category, and we want to unlock the spell knowledge 1 and 2, and then the swift move as well. Then let's move over to the dark arts, and we want to fully max this whole thing out. And then lastly, we want to open up the spells category and unlock the Defendo Mastery, then the Incendio Mastery, and then lastly the Confringo Mastery. As I said at the start, Hogwarts Legacy doesn't have the same talent system like in other games, so I recommend to first of all use the only talents that I told you to unlock first, but then when you get higher level, then you can spend your points in whatever order you like. So then let's move over to the gear, and in this game the gear stats are very basic. So we have our health, defense and offense, and then in total we have 6 gear pieces. So we get gloves, facewear, hats, scarves, cloaks and outfit. Each one of these items will increase one of your stats, and all you have to do is after each few quests keep checking your inventory and use the gear that has this green arrow, or then sell it if it has a red arrow. The gear that you use doesn't really matter besides the upgrades and traits that you can enchant the gear with. So we upgrade our gear by using the loom in our AK. What you want to do is come to this loom and constantly upgrade gear pieces. And then lastly, while we're talking about gear, the last one. So then let's move over to our spells, and in general this build will be using 8 spells, so 2 sets of 4 spell presets, and if you did not know by now, then by using your first talent point in the spell knowledge 1, you can unlock additional 4 spell presets and much more. So for the first spell we have the Crucio. This ability will cause enemies to take damage over time, and this curse can curse multiple enemies at once. Then the second spell is called Flipendo. This ability will flip enemies upwards and backwards, making them vulnerable for a short period, and the skill has very low cooldowns, so it's perfect for any type of monster. Then the third spell is called Imperio. This ability will force enemies to fight as if they were your friend. While under our control, they can curse other enemies as well. So the skill is great to use on one of the monsters and then leave him alone, so he could help us with destroying his friends. Then the fourth spell is the one and only Avada Kedavra. The skill is very simple. On whoever you use it, he will get one-shotted and die instantly. Yes, the spell is very OP but has a long cooldown, so especially in quests, you wanna only use the spell on the strongest enemies. Then for the next one we have the Incendio, and this skill will shoot a quick burst of fire. While the range is short, all enemies hit with the fire will take burning damage constantly. Then for the next one we have the Defendo spell. This skill will slash enemies from afar, doing a lot of damage. Then for one of the last spells we have the Axio. This skill will summon or basically pull enemies or objects closer. This is another good ability that won't do any damage, but is very useful to break enemy casting, or just use it in completing all the puzzle quests in the game. And then lastly we will be using the Confringo. This is a long range bolt that deals damage on impact. Enemies hit with the fire attack will continue to take damage for few seconds. and during that time collisions will result in incendiary burst, which will do even more damage. So overall this build's main strategy is to utilize all the forbidden curses and buff all the damage over time as much as we can. And by the way, just for a quick information, you can unlock all 3 forbidden spells when you reach about level 25 and have completed all 3 Sebastian Solo forbidden spell quests. Then as well, as you can see, we can unlock the 3rd spell preset and even the 4th one, but in my opinion 2 presets are plenty enough for combat, and by the time we use all 8 spells, the first ones are ready to be used again. So then lastly, for our essential combat spells, like most of us already know, we have the basic cast, which by pressing a left click will do a simple basic attack. Then your Q spell is called Protect. Which is your basic defense spell, and if you get hit while holding it, then not only you will take no damage, but you can stun the enemy as well. Then the next skill is called the Ancient Throw, which you can use if you're fighting enemies in places with small rocks or objects. Well, this will allow you to throw these rocks and objects at your target. And then our lastly, so by your X on enemies, and do your ultimate ability, which will do spell rotation. So most of the spells are very self-explanatory, but just in case, here's the spell combos and rotations that you want to use. So we want to start the fight with the Flipendo spell, then afterwards we use the Crucio, and then we can finish the enemy with the Defendo or Confringo. Then another combo is to first of all on the strongest enemy use the Imperio spell, which will make him attack his friend. So then on the other enemies we can use Axio and then finish it off with the Incendio. And then lastly, of course, on whoever enemy you want to just one-shot, then use the Avada Kedavra, and that's it. What I usually do is combine all of these 3 combos in one rotation. So I usually use the Imperio on one random enemy, and then switch to the next one, and then use Flipendo, then Crucio, then Incendio, then Accio, and then finish it off with the Defendo or Confringo. And then lastly, I always save my Avada Kedavra spell for elite monsters. But if I know that I won't be fighting any hard enemies, then I just simply find a random enemy with full HP, and then just one-shot him to make the spell go back on the cooldown. And of course, by default you want to keep on using the dodge or Q to escape enemy attacks, and then as well keep on left clicking for basic attacks, and that's about it. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching. So what's going on guys, Kate is here, and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the new best God Wizard build in Hogwarts Legacy. So then moving over to the build, and the way it will work that we will be using the Glacius to freeze and detonate enemies in a group. Then a Resto Momentum spell will slow enemies down and give you time to plan your next attack. And by using the slowing curse, it will also increase the damage that the target takes after casting. Then as well, Enduring Curse will extend the duration of this damage debuff, and Curse Supper heals you when you defeat your enemies if they are cursed. Then Knockback Curse changes the Flipendo, allowing it to curse as well, making the spell 2 times more useful. I like to call the setup as the Dumbledore build, because we won't be using any forbidden curses, but the damage that we will do will be still very high. Then there's also focus in this build on defensive magic in Protego, allowing you to get the best use of it through using the Protego Absorption, Protego Expertise and Protego Mastery. This talent setup I will show you just in a second, but overall this build will not only make
therapy for me, I think
make you very powerful on the defense but on offense as well. So then let's move over to our talents, and as you get 1 talent per each level, so expect to max most of your talent tree to more than 50%, but for the first 10 to 15 levels each point matters. So then first of all we want to spend 3 points in the core category, and we want to unlock the spell knowledge 1 and 2, and then the swift move as well. At the start, then you can use only the talents I told you to unlock first. But then when you're higher level, then you can spend your talent points in whatever order you like. So then let's move over to the gear, and in this game the gear and stats are very basic. So we have our health, defense and offense, and then in total there are 6 gear pieces. So we get gloves, face sphere, hat, scarves, cloaks, and out. What to do is after each few quests, keep checking your inventory and use only the gear that really matters. Upgrade our gear, but basically all that you want to do is come to this loom and constantly upgrade your gear by simply pressing. So So then let's move over to our spells, and in general...
Oh wait, do we?
This build will be using 8 spells, so 2 sets of 4 spell presets. And if you did not know by now, then by using your first talent point in the spell knowledge 1, you can unlock additional 4 spell presets and much more. So then for the first spell we have the Glacius. This ability will freeze the enemies and make them take increased follow-up damage. Then the second one is called the Arresto Momentum. This ability will slow enemies and give you extra time to do a bunch of damage. Then the third spell is called Defendo. This skill will slash enemies from afar, doing a lot of damage. Then the fourth spell is called Flipendo. This ability will flip enemies up.
With the first unlocking at level 5, the second at 6 are sorry. The way to this upside mainly full night. More tier fire damage, the upgrade to Confringo is really good. It spawns homing project, which makes it when you damage. This of course.
Okay, so the game becoming vulnerable.
Finally, the Edgerus potion can be a real lifesaver against tougher foes, as you can see here playstyle. After leveling up some more, you should be able to access the second and eventually the third tier of skills. While I think the second tier of the core skills aren't that exciting, with the exception of another spell diamond and an upgrade.
Okay, so maybe I should just do these two. So core. Well, I kind of want to like, so definitely this. That is a really good one. So 6.
For your Wiggenweld potions, the third tier has some great talent, specifically if you enjoy blocking and parrying. Protego Mastery releases a damaging shockwave.
Okay. I think I have an idea what I want to do. Spell combos is your turn, okay. Using with spells let you one-shot everything from your curses. Alright, let's see this real quick.
You're probably going to switch to an evil playthrough after this video because Vara Kedavra is completely insane, and we can make it even better with a proper setup. I will try to keep spoilers to a minimum in this video on how to acquire the unforgivable curses, but if you don't want to see that now, maybe come back at a later date. In the meantime, let's dive right in with the setup. So the way this setup works is that we'll use the curse mechanic from the Dark Arts skill tree and the Vara Kedavra to one-shot targets, and then turn the one-shot mechanic into an AoE that jumps and hits all of the other affected targets around us, basically casting a chain of Vara Kedavra that even Lord Voldemort would be proud of. We'll also compensate for the long cooldown of this skill with some potion, plus the skills that we're gonna cover in just a little bit. Starting things off with the 3 killing curses, you get these by progressing and eventually finishing all of the Sebastian's side missions called In the Shadow of. I will try to keep spoilers at a bare minimum as I've said, so only try to focus on the acquiring part where he ends up teaching you these learned Confringo from him, but then at around level 16 he's going to teach you the first unforgivable curse, which is the Cruciatus Curse in the Shadow of the Study mission. You just need to pick either of the options that let you learn it, and then make sure you avoid the one that, well, basically
Cast 5 spells in 15 seconds.
Doesn't. Then at around level 17 you get the In the Shadow of Time, during which he teaches you Imperio, the mind control curse, where you also have to pick the proper dialogue choice and not be a sissy. But the final one, the Killing Curse, comes in much later at around level 25 plus, depending how you progress in the game, and in this last quest he'll give you the option at the end to learn a Vara Kedavra or not. obviously select yes please, which I find to be a very proper answer in this situation. Now by default all of these are very strong, but the Killing Curse has a very long cooldown, plus it's single target only, so let's fix that with a few talent skills. The core talents needed to make this work are going to be found in the Dark Arts line, starting with Crucio Mastery that opens up at level 16. This will make any attack against a target cursed by Crucio to now release projectiles that curse other nearby targets. Not only does this deal some extra AoE damage, but also completely breaks enemy shields of all colors, so it's an important component in making this build as OP as it is. You can also pick Imperial Mastery to make enemies under your control to also further curse targets with their own attacks, but I don't find it as needed as the previous one. The most important here will be the Avada Kedavra Mastery, which will make it hit all enemies that have been previously cursed, no matter in which way you have cursed them. This of course comes at around level 22, and I would keep an extra point on top to also get the Curse Sapper alongside with it, where defeating cursed enemies also restores some HP. So you can probably already see where I'm going with this one. We just turned a single target one-shot mechanic into an AoE one-shot, which I will admit looks just as insane as it sounds. You have to start with Crucio on preferably the highest HP target you have nearby, and then spam a few basic attacks against it. This will cause all of these projectiles to spread out on every hit, which will curse all of the targets that they come in contact with, including if they have shields or not. It doesn't really matter as all of them get broken. From here, if you follow with the Killing Curse instead of the only primary target suffering, you'll see it further jump from the point of impact in all of the directions towards other cursed enemies, which obviously will result in a lot of painful screams of joyful agony as you one-shot entire groups of enemies. I will say that this is one of the most fun ways in which I played Hogwarts Legacy until this point, and even though it's OP and broken as hell, it is very satisfying, to the point that it is definitely worth it to dedicate a playthrough around just being purely evil. Now there's a few points you'll want to also add in on top of these to make this build even better. I definitely recommend getting the Stunning Curse, even if you don't plan on learning the Unforgivable Curses, or if you don't plan on going with an evil build, since this will still let you further curse targets with Stupefy following a parry. And if you get the perfect Protego Mastery, since that one launches multiple Stupefies on a perfect parry, this literally means cursing even more targets with one single button press. Also Blood Curse, which goes in very well with this one, so that all targets that have been cursed will share a portion of that damage. This is excellent for any build actually, no matter which one of these spells you use, to share roughly 5 to 10% of the damage that you deal on the primary target. Plus we have the healing we get from the Curse Sapper talent I talked about previously, which makes it amazing in case you're out of potions for some reason. Now on top of these, the only other point I got from the Dark Arts is to turn Expelliarmus into a curse as well. This was already amazing for the fact that it just counters executioner enemies so well, especially the ones that cast lightning strikes or fire tornadoes. If you do it during that cast animation, you can basically make them like hit themselves with their own spells for some really massive damage. But if you also invest that point into the Dark Arts Expelliarmus, you essentially turn it into a curse as well that further marks enemies, in case you want a quick way of doing so. But Flipando or Arresto Momentum also have their own talents here, turn them into curses as well, if you prefer those, by the way. Actually, if I think about it, probably Arrest Momentum would technically be the most cruelest version, as it also slows enemies' reaction, so they literally see the Killing Curse coming but are unable to do anything in time. So probably you can go with this one if you want to go like pure evil. Now, as I've said, there's one drawback to this, which is the fact that the cooldown on the Killing Curse is very long, but there's a way to remove that, which is done via the Focus Potion. You can unlock this from Hogsmeade by just heading over to Pippin's Potion Shop. When used, this works for around 10 to 20 seconds, and it massively impacts the cooldown of all of your abilities to the point that even a Vara Kedavra takes just mere seconds to get casted again. So to get the potion, there's a few ingredients that you will first need. Starting with the lace wing, so followed my planter if you also want to craft the liquid important, and I recommended getting the stem. If you followed my previous guides, you already know that these are important, and I recommended getting these alongside the large planter if you also want to craft the liquid luck potion, assuming that you have the PlayStation exclusive one. Finally, for the Dogbog tongues, you can hunt the frog-like Dogbog creatures that will spawn near bodies of water. So this includes this river area that you find south of Hogwarts, but you can head over even more south to the swamp area right here from the nearby hamlet. In fact, there's a den filled with some of these Dogbogs right there that you can farm really quickly. Quick tip, if you hold them by their tongues, which is done by default with Levioso, just as they're about to use their tongues to attack you, you can actually lift those tongues up and then just cast a quick defendo to one-shot them and get the remaining ingredient. And then you can just craft it back at the room of requirements and get the cooldown fast and easy. All I can say is that this is a lot of fun despite the fact that it's completely broken, and yes, there are some bosses that at least can counter you, but normal enemies and the ones you find in the wild, yeah, they are defenseless. One quick tip is that Imperial is still going to be quite useful in this setup too, especially if you still like to toy with your food a little bit. For example, I like using it on the biggest target, since that means they'll always deal the highest damage against other targets nearby, and I can also keep the primary one off me. Also, enemies affected by Imperial are considered unaware targets, so just like in the case of the ones that you take by surprise during stealth, you can also use Petrificus Totalis against the ones under your control. You can do so for as long as the Imperial duration is still going, and you can cast Petrificus Totalis multiple times until that cooldown ends. Furthermore, if you plan a less evil gameplay, as I've said, you can just pick the curse mechanic and have the AoE damage spread against targets. Totally let me know down below in the comments.
Okay,
Welcome to Hawthorne Island.
which one was it?
Strongest combos, except that they do it every second without stop. You can throw up to 3 trait line, which lets you throw 2 cabbages at the sando on it when it's trying to get up, giving you plenty of time to do other attacks as well. But there's more a lot later, and there's an even stronger combo with the Glaciers and Defendo, which is probably the best skill combo right now. From all of the regular spells. If you freeze a target first and then immediately cast Defender on it, you again amplify the damage, deal much higher numbers as you basically slash that target with this awesome spell. Glacius was already great at amplifying literally every single one of your other attacks once you do freeze a target, but Defendo just works the best with it in like 99% of the situations, though you will have to use it right away, otherwise the frozen effect might wear off too quickly. Further, adding a Maxima potion in the mix that I also covered in previous videos will pretty much double the damage of the amplified Defendo, and you can easily pull off 10k, for example, even if it's a non-crit. From my testing on the high difficulty, it seems that this setup is also best on the large enemies like the armored trolls and the arachnid bosses, since you can maximize the damage on that Defendo. It's a
What am I? do have it. Okay.
Likely still not going to crit, but the white damage numbers are still going to be higher than Confringo or Bombarda comparatively. I also tested the eyes from Glacius plus the Confringo, which was significantly weaker against these larger targets, but still nonetheless amazing against the normal sized enemies, since technically this combo is still overkill. Meanwhile, combining Glacius with Bombarda resulted in a much higher damage than this, slightly behind the Defendo, but still quite useful and a bit more reliable nonetheless. Defendo has this issue where it kind of tends to like slash into the ground and completely avoid hitting the target, but Bombarda doesn't have that issue. So if you have problems with Defendo, Bombarda can be an amazing compromise. But it makes sense, it's also because Confringo Mastery is slightly weaker than Bombarda when it comes to single target damage, so maybe that's it. That being said, there's other really cool interactions to keep in mind, and certain enemies as well as states can have other big weaknesses that can result in getting them one-shotted even with a very weak build. For example, when you see spiders digging into the ground for the
Let me see if I have any traits for Defendo or whatever it's called. Alright, well. Oh. Wait, I'm dumb. Damn. Let's see, what was I gonna do? Here. Okay.
Confringo! Defendo! Accio! Descendo! Glacius! Defendo! Levioso! Descendo! Glacius! Confringo! Levioso!